Hi, everyone. I want to thank you and welcome you to the Self-Care Forum podcast. My name is Dr. Cedric Batchatu, your host for the hour. We bring you knowledge to empower you and address the root cause of your disease. Our goal is to interest you in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Today, we're fortunate to be joined by none other than health and wellness coach Marci Kenon. She's a certified personal trainer and lifestyle coach. Coach Kenon uses an approach that utilizes health, fitness, strength, balance, and nutrition in order to improve the health of her clients. She's also the founder of Preventative Lifestyle Assistant Network, also known as PLAN, where she works with those who are diagnosed with diabetes and helps them manage and deal with the root cause of the disease. Coach Marci Kenon, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Self-Care Forum podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege.
Well, the privilege is all mine, and I'm sure the audience thanks you for the wisdom that you're going to share with us. So I always start these podcast interviews by asking our guest about their past. I want to know a little bit about you, what inspired you to pursue this journey of health and wellness. Was there something that motivated you in your life or that had an impact on you to spur you into becoming and doing what you do today?
Well, I've always been very active. As a kid, I played basketball, I roller skated, I was into skateboarding. I've always been active. One of the turning points for me was my having to go into an alcohol and drug treatment center when I was 23 years old. Now that was in 1990. You can do the math on that. And I spent 27 days in a rehab in California. And when you go from treating your body, that negatively, then you kind of bounce back the other way. So I got sober in California. I had gone to the University of Southern California. So I had lived in Los Angeles before. And I decided to stay there as opposed to coming back to New York, where my problems were. And so it was that experience that led me to honoring my body on another level. And so I started working out. One of the things that I didn't want was to gain weight. After, when I went to the rehab, they were showing these before and after pictures with people, and people had literally gained like 30 and 40 pounds. And this is during the 80s cocaine epidemic. And so I didn't want that. I worked out and I started to participate very faithfully in the 12 steps program. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a process that's used to unravel people from a host of habits today, from, eating, overeating to gambling. There's a 12-step program for nearly everything. So anyways, I spent years in the program, and I'm blessed to say that I'm over 31 years sober. And so, that's kind of where it started for me. I used to go to the Marina Athletic Club and work out. And I was meeting people. California has a whole different culture than New York. And I was meeting people in the rooms who were doing like the master cleanse. I can remember the day that I was introduced to what people now call the lemonade diet by Stanley Burroughs. That was kind of the fad then. And, I did cleanses of my body, was learning how to take care of my body and eat differently. Again, California is a whole nother culture. And, I was faring very well out there. And again, that's kind of where I started to work on spiritual things. A lot of times getting to the roots of the problem has to do with, things that happen in our past. There are certain things that will be the result of us having certain attitudes or being a certain way. I'll give an example. When I was younger, I looked older. And when I'd be on the streets in New York, older men would gawk at me. And so I learned to wear, like I used to wear these clothes that kind of covered my body because I had to trace it back to that. That's the wonderful thing about doing work in the 12-step program. You first admit that you're powerless over whatever it is. A lot of people are powerless over food today, and that's something that's overlooked. But like anything else, if you don't acknowledge it, or if you don't see the connection for yourself, then it won't apply. You have to admit that you're powerless over this, that your life has become unmanageable. Then you have to come to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. And then you have to make that decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand God. And then the next thing you do, which is crucial, and this is where a lot of people leave the program, is that you have to do a fearless moral inventory of yourself, right? You got to dig deep. Can you repeat, the theme of this program? You wanted to get to the root of
diseases.
So
the root cause.
Yeah. So when you start to dig and you start to do a moral inventory of yourself, that's where I learned that no matter what you've done to me, if we have a beef, I have a part in it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I always have to look at what is my part, even if it's allowing myself to be a doormat. That's a choice I made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the reason this is even coming up for me, I haven't worked, a program the way I used to, but I heard a gentleman on a prayer call use these steps, the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, in a Christian setting to try to get people to deal with the habits that are not serving them. And so I now have the privilege of being the health leader of my church, which is Ephesus SDA Church in Harlem. And one of the first things I thought about was to bring this pastor in to do this program with us because it's powerful. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who don't have to go down certain roads could absolutely benefit from this process, which is a lifelong process. It's actually a process that is alluded to in the Bible, when Paul talks about taking inventories, but it kind of goes over people's heads. In this process, it's very specific. And for those of us who have gone through some things where, my life is on the line, if I don't do this work, I might drink again, right? So there's an urgency to getting the work done that unless you have hit rock bottom in whatever it is. And as I was saying earlier, I think a lot of rock bottom today for people is food, right? Food. That's the first, the end in New Start, nutrition.
That's right. And I want to get into the New Start protocol that you use with some of your clients. And thank you, by the way, for sharing that, your history, being so open about it, because I think a lot of people, these are not things that we often admit publicly, but these are things people definitely have gone through and are going through right now. So it's always good to hear from someone who's been there, who's hit rock bottom, and who's climbed themselves out of whatever rut they found themselves in. And it's always good to hear how they did it, because seeing how someone made it or was able to transition is also, it's not only very inspiring, but it also motivates us to want to do the same thing. So I thank you for your openness and your honesty in sharing some of the struggles that you've had. Now, speaking of food, I think this is at the crux of what food seems to be at the core of what many of our guests on this podcast, focus on and center around, because food is so powerful. Unfortunately, food is also mass produced. It's also modified and bastardized and cheapened and everything. So tell us a little bit about what some of the things you learned about food and the power of food on your journey to being a certified, lifestyle and health and lifestyle coach.
Well, so now I'll bring another recreation or reinvention of myself. I had just come out of the mortgage industry. I got into the mortgage industry very serendipitously, and I was doing well, and this was the new me. And then all of a sudden, everything crashed. So then I thought, I called one of my mentors and I talked to her. I said, I have to do something that's closer to who I am. And she says, why don't you do a fitness training? And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. And so I studied for I became an IFPA, International Fitness Professional Association certification. I was living in Tampa, Florida at the time. And Jim Bell, who's the president, they are based there. So I could actually go and participate in this course. And so at the same time, during a routine examination, I was diagnosed with prediabetes, which I thought, what? That was very shocking to me. And Dr. Marsha Brown, who happens to be a white woman, her mother and her grandmother both were diabetics, type 2 diabetics. Both of them became double amputees, and they both died of complications related to type 2 diabetes. So even though I was on the low end, prediabetes is like 5.7 A1C to 6.5. Once you hit, I believe it's 6.5 or 6.6, and maybe 6.5 actually, you are now type 2 diabetic. So I was like 5'7".
Wow.
And she, she was very, she was sounding the alarm, and I thought it was a bit melodramatic personally. But nonetheless, I took a course. I went and did a six-week course that they had at a library. There's a lot of resources for people out there. The diabetes prevention program, which I was doing for the last couple of years, was another, it's another program that's available out there for people. There's a lot of resources when you want to get help for these things. So that was a turning point as well. And that's kind of what led me to looking at, pre-diabetes, finding out more about that. 50% of us statistically who are borderline diabetics will become, type 2 diabetics, right? And a lot of us will then, of that group, will suffer the consequences of having diabetes, which is a dietary disease. According to Dr. Jason Fung, who is a doctor who treated people in a traditional manner, and it wasn't working. So he went on his own quest because he wanted to help his people. Now he does something called the Intensive Dietary Management Program, which is a protocol that involves intermittent fasting. Yes, when you're not eating, you're fasting. And when you're not eating, you're giving your body a break, for starters, your digestive system. And additionally, it allows for those who can't move, it allows for your body to start to burn. If you're not putting stuff in, your body has to then depend on the stored energy. What's the stored energy?
The fat.
Answer that?
The fat.
Bingo. That's all fat is. Fat is, I've eaten more than my body needs for that day. And so it stores the fat. And if I keep doing that every day, then it keeps storing the fat, because I don't need the caloric intake that I'm, doing. I need less food because I'm not moving, I'm not working out, I'm not walking. Maybe I'm sitting behind a desk all day, right? And so, so that's how I got into the whole, looking at diabetes and studying that. And, a lot of the medicines that we take, and I don't take any medicines for the record, that they deal with the symptoms of the issues, the disease,
That's
the conditions. True. Rarely do they actually get, as you say, to the root of the problem. Mm-hmm. Because the root of the problem, and I think if nothing showed us this, the COVID epidemic has.
Yes, yes.
And I'm amazed by how it's still kind of going over people's heads, right? So the people who are sick, suffering, and dying have comorbidities.
Comorbidity. Now, before we get into that, Coach, I'd like to just clarify some things that you said. Now, as far as A1C, when you were talking about prediabetes, I just want the audience and those who are going to be listening to this to understand what you meant by your A1C. Just for those who are listening to this, I don't want them to be confused. So A1C refers to the average, blood sugar level, your average over the past 3 months. And so it measures the amount of blood sugar that is in your red blood cells. And so generally between 5.7% to 6.4% is considered being pre-diabetic. Anything above 6.4, so 6.5 and above, would classify you as type 2 diabetic. And so that's what Coach Kenon meant when she said she had an A1C of 5.7%. So she was classified as being pre-diabetic. Now, in the United States, there's about 88 million Americans who are considered pre-diabetic. And unfortunately, most of them don't even know that they are pre-diabetic. So they're just sort of living ignorantly, ignoring any sort of symptoms that develop. And unfortunately, as you said, more than half of those will likely become diabetic if they don't change their lifestyle. Am I correct?
Exactly. And just for anyone who's listening who may go, wow, I really wish I could know something about that. We have a site. I've joined forces with the 8EIGHT.org, and you can go to checkyourrisk.org. There is an 8 questionnaire survey that was devised by the CDC. You answer those questions, and it will give you a pretty good idea as to whether you are at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And so that's a kind of an official test. We happen to put it on our own platform so that we could follow up with people who, may have wanted more help, and that we can target certain people, because a lot of people don't have access to that particular questionnaire. It's actually the survey that we can use as diabetes prevention program providers to qualify people for the CDC program. Mm-hmm. So checkyourrisk.org. Feel free to go there, answer those questions. If you want further help, you can reach out to us.
Thank you for sharing that. You also mentioned Dr. Jason Fung. He is a Canadian-based medical doctor, nephrologist, who has actually authored several books. One of the books that relates to this topic of diabetes is called the Diabetes Code, where he, openly advocates for intermittent fasting, especially for treating people with type 2 diabetes. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And he has helped people who have been, long-term diabetics, grossly overweight, on insulin and multiple meds. I notice now in some of the people I've worked with that they are recommending meds for people who are not even, who are pre-diabetic. They're giving them meds like metformin early on. So, it's a dietary disease, and the solution is dietary. What ends up happening, and Fung really elaborates on this, and we will be doing a reading of Dr. Jason Fung's book towards the end of January, early February. So, at some point we'll share my contact information if you want to join us for that reading. I think that book is that important. We can have a lot of knowledge about, A1Cs and all of that, but I think it's really important that people understand the role of medication. He talks about how people are given the wrong impression about their condition because of, the constant, oh, so you don't have sugar, your blood sugar levels are lower. It's now 6.6, it's now 7, whatever. But the diabetes is actually progressing underneath that. That's a scary notion, right? Yes. So what does that mean? That means if you're not changing your diet, you're not exercising, you're not changing your lifestyle, basically, the diabetes is getting worse underneath it. And then you start to have kidney problems. And, a lot of diabetics end up on dialysis.
Neuropathy.
With fatty liver disease. There are doctors who are speaking to people who are diabetics, and their livers look like livers of alcoholics. And the doctors would say, well, how much do you drink? And the person would be like, maybe a glass of wine, once or twice a week. And the doctor would be like, sure. Because the livers had the same damage that alcoholics' livers have, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then of course there's the amputations. April talks about amputation. There's it's not even related to diabetes, but what happens is so many people with amputations are from diabetes. Mm-hmm. So even though people may lose their limbs in car accidents and, other ways, the primary way that people have amputations is due to diabetes. So we will be focusing on that for April. That is amputee month. There's another name for it specifically, but because of the link to, people having amputations as a result of diabetes, it's important that we highlight that. In some areas, people are having amputations without other options being done for them. And those people look like us, of course. So there's a Dr. Ferrady, who went out to Mississippi and actually set up shop. He was so appalled by the number of Black peoples whose limbs were being amputated. And he specializes in a procedure that helps get circulation going to those parts of the body to save the limbs, right? Yeah.
Wow. Now, what you were referring to, I think the word is April is Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're on top of your game tonight. I really appreciate it.
No, I mean, I'm learning as you're speaking. It's not something that I was aware of. So I appreciate you bringing that to our collective consciousness and our attention. Yeah, and I know for a fact that, just as a lot of, one of the biggest causes of people going on dialysis is diabetes and blood sugar issues. And then there's high blood pressure on top of that. And of course, diabetes can contribute to high blood pressure as well. So all of these chronic diseases, chronic illnesses are related. Many a times they have a common root cause. And, as we've discussed, treating the symptom of a disease does not necessarily address the root cause of the disease. It's great to, get rid of the symptoms, because they're pervasive, they're annoying, and many a times they may be debilitating. But I think in treating the symptom, we often get lost in the idea that, well, as long as I can take this pill and lower my blood sugar, I'm fine. We don't seem to forget that. We don't seem to remember, rather, that, listen, just because a pill can lower your blood sugar, it doesn't mean your pancreas is working any better. It doesn't mean your insulin is working any better. And we have to take stock in terms of how we are living, the lifestyle that we lead, and of course, ultimately, the diet that we consume. Now, here's a question that I have for you, and I'm curious. When you work with clients, how receptive are they to the nutritional aspect of the nutritional approach to dealing with health? Because many of us, we live in a society where you take a pill for a symptom. So when you're working with your clients and you're talking about nutrition and dietary changes, how receptive are they?
I just want to double back to something you said when it comes to symptoms, treating the symptoms. Remember, a lot of the symptoms are our bodies actually doing what they're supposed to do, like when we have a fever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, certain things is our bodies ridding themselves of poisons and toxins, right? And so, then so if my nose is running, that's what my body is supposed to do, and then we start to, kind of short circuit the natural way the body is helping itself, right? Which is not always the best, right? But I just want to mention that because that happens as well when we're dealing with dealing with just the symptoms, which often is our bodies doing what they're supposed to do and healing, right? And protecting us from toxins or whatever. So how receptive are people? I'll tell you this, New Start is an acronym that a group of us in my denomination use, right? This is people may approach it differently, but for the most part, we're using this acronym. Some people have changed. I have some close friends of mine, a new you, right? Mm-hmm. Why did they change that? Because people are so resistant when it comes to nutrition and making changes that they didn't want to lead with nutrition, right? Mm. So getting people to make changes, if you even think about, remember when, what's our mayor? Bloomberg,
okay.
You remember the soda fiasco?
The soda ban, yes. Oh, the soda tax.
Well, he didn't want people selling the big sodas anymore, right?
Yes.
And people got upset about that. What? We want to drink as much soda as we want to drink, right? Mm-hmm. Think about it. People love Michelle Obama, but when she started to talk about diet, right? I'm serious. When she was moving and grooving with Beyonce, that was all good. But when they got to the nutrition part, little resistance there, right?
A lot.
And it's interesting. It's really interesting. We know a lot. Some people don't know. It's true. I think with people, and this is what the area I'm moving into, the power of habit, right? Mm-hmm. The power of habit. Our brains and the power of habits. Habits are deep rooted. You're talking cultural habits, right? Mm-hmm. Soul food, cooking with lard, cooking certain foods. And this is not just, every culture. I used to work with a Greek girl and down at Equinox. And her mom wanted her to eat every night she came home. She's like, "Mom, I'm trying to do something different." She's making these lovely dishes, but it wasn't helping her lose weight, right? So, everyone has, these foods, and the power of habits are powerful. People literally will keep going down a road. Other people don't understand it. People can see it when they see junkies on the street in Harlem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they can't understand it when it comes to food. I believe I believe food addiction is the biggest problem in this country right now and beyond. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because the food companies, right? They know us very well. They study the brain. They have the little rats and they're sticking little things on their, in their brains, and they study us. They know how to profit from our habits.
Yes.
The way our minds work. Some of the ways that our minds work, they give an example. If you had to learn how to drive a car each time you got in there, that would be problematic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't been behind a wheel in 5 years. If I get behind the wheel now, I'll remember how to drive. I may have to be like, well, what is this new key thing you guys got going on? Because these cars have been modernized. So, but I will recall, if I get on a bicycle right now, I haven't been on a bicycle in probably 10 years, but I will recall how to ride the bike, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a little rough on me when I got in some roller skates about 10 years ago. I thought, whoa, took me a minute. But these memories are here. They're in my mind. Habits and these things don't go away. I'm sober 31 years. I used to hear people say this in AA. My disease is over there doing push-ups, waiting for me to slip up. I used to hear people come back and they say, it was like they'd be 25 years sober. And it was like those years never even existed. They were in weeks, months, right back where they started. And amazed by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm making is that marketers, you can see this in books. I'm reading a book called Power of Habit. There, the power of influence. These people study us because they want us to be customers for life.
That's right.
Pharmaceutical companies want you to be customers for life. I've asked, how long do I have to be on this medicine? Oh, you'll have to take that the rest of your life. I'm like, that's not happening. But that's the answer. Oh, you'll have to take this the rest of your life. You mentioned blood pressure. Brilliant brother just died maybe 2 months ago. And he had told a story about how he had high blood pressure. The doctor gave him medicine, which he faithfully took. A lot of people, when the doctor says something, it's like a divine, it's like divine for them. People put doctors on pedestals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he took it for 10 years. He started to have kidney problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a side effect of the medicine that he took for 10 years. Now, at a certain point when the kidney issue started, he then looked for natural ways of bringing his blood pressure down, and they worked. But unfortunately, because he took the meds for so long, his kidneys were now taxed.
Mm.
Then he was doing dialysis as a result.
Wow.
So now he has eliminated the blood pressure by changing his food, taking certain herbs, but now he has a kidney problem, which may have contributed to his death. And he is a tremendous loss. This man was brilliant.
Wow.
You would have just loved him to be on the show. Brilliant, right? He's dead. Okay. So, every med has a side effect.
Everyone.
I'm an asthmatic, right? Pumps. Eventually, that's not going to work for me, right? Some of the foods I eat, could be causing allergies.
Yes.
So, making those changes, making those commitments, taking the time, understanding how important it is, understanding that every pill you take, I've seen people, older people with bags of medicine. How do you even keep up with that? Seriously. I have a couple of people who have, I take a shake. It's a superfood, it's nutritional, it's the best. They're on so much meds, they're on so many medicines that when they took something that is fantastic for their body, has, the best ingredients from Peru, Mexico, Japan, their body and the interactions with the meds upset their stomach. So they can't take something good for them because of all the meds they're taking.
Yeah.
I was blown away by them. I'm like, wow, so.
Wow. So I'm curious to know, I'd like to know a little bit more about some of your work with the National Diabetes Prevention Program.
So I stumbled across that. It's really, I was doing my CEUs and, I saw something that brought Plan to life for me. It was about being the bridge between the doctors. People go to the doctor every 6 months to a year. And a lot of times they're in the same condition and possibly worse. How do we help them go back to the doctor with some improvement? That was a concept, to kind of be the bridge. Mm-hmm. Then I stumbled across the CDC's National Diabetes Prevention Program, year-long program, successful. A couple of small groups of people went through the program. And, the program is a long program. It's a year. It's like 16 weeks, once a week, and then we go to month. And people had success in it because they had time. This was not, we're doing something in 21 days, you're going to lose 30 pounds. It wasn't that. It was modules, cookie cutter, they have it all laid out. It's evidence-based and all of that. And so, people who came focused, I have one gentleman who allows me to use his name. He was the only person from my church who took advantage of the program, and he lost 48 pounds.
Wow.
He lost 48 pounds. And his wife, I didn't find out until a few months ago. He was in my first class, so it's been about 2 years for him. But his wife, because she had to make certain changes in terms of what she was preparing for him, ended up losing 20 pounds herself. Wow. Over that period. So, yeah. And other people, I have a young woman who she's working with me now in my current health challenge. She lost, what is she up to? Like 75 pounds. I think she's up to 82 pounds. She's lost. So then some people have lost 15 pounds. And then some people, they learn some things. And it's a seed planted. And, you have to accept that everyone's on a journey. And sometimes it might not be that moment for them. I have a friend, she took a course 2 years, 3 years, maybe even 4 years ago. And she just lost 100 pounds over the last year and a half. So this information and sticking to trying to get to the next level on your journey can be accumulative. And you don't know when that click twirl will come, or that one thing that people need to hear that will be life-changing for them. We just hope it happens before, type 2 diabetes is reversible, it's preventable. But I believe there might be a point where the pancreas is just too tapped. Mm-hmm. You understand? So we hope that people can get to those changes before it might not be reversible anymore.
Now, what are some of the things that you cover in your module and health challenges? What are some of the ways in which you work with these clients and these patients in order to get them to achieve the weight loss and the lifestyle changes?
So, okay, so the modules is pretty much everything people have heard. You know what I mean? Laying out the plate, the food plate, which some of the stuff, I would have preferred maybe a plant-based version of it, But anyway, so it's laying out the nutrition. What do you do when you go away? Food prepping, just the typical stuff laid out. But the key is, and this goes to, again, how the brain works, small wins, right? So each week there's a plan of action that people are supposed to do. Small. We don't want big, no tremendous stuff. Maybe this week I'll start to take the skin. Thank you for joining us. I'll start to take the skin off of my chicken. Someone brought me this air fryer for Christmas. I'll start to use this. Or, okay, at my job, I'm going to start taking the stairs when I go, out and come back. I'll start, getting up every 30 minutes to stretch my legs. Small changes that, again, compound into bigger changes, right? One of the major changes that people make, or tools that they use, I should say, is tracking. Okay. Tracking your food. Tracking, even there's a study that says people tend to think they eat less than they do. Like 30% people think they think they eat 30% less than they do. And they think they work out 30% more than they do. Did I get that right?
I think so. That sounds about right.
So yeah. So it's the delusion. We're delusional when it comes to these things, right? So as soon as you start tracking, as soon as you start writing, I mean, everything, you write down everything. If you put a piece of gum in your mouth, you write it down, right? You start to, first of all, you don't want to see that stuff. You start to clean up right away. At least I have when I start tracking, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to see some crap on my, record here, because now it's a record. I'm writing it down. You write it down and there's an accountability that immediately starts. And in some cases, I had one young lady, she lost about 15 pounds. She didn't need to lose a lot of weight. So that was pretty much her goal. But she says she ate well too. She says, I had no idea as to how much I was eating. Okay. So you get a reality check. She's like, I didn't realize how much food I was eating until I started writing it down. And I'm like, whoa. So that allowed her to start to control her portions, right? So the diabetes prevention program, New York State Medicaid pays for it. If you're a major company, you can get paid. They make it pretty hard for churches and small community-based organizations to play in that realm. I am actually signed up for Medicaid, but in order to get paid for Medicaid, there are, you know what a managed care organization is?
Yes.
Right. Health First, Emblem Health, Fidelis Care. Mm-hmm. There are like 18 of them. They divvy up the map. The major player here is Health First in New York City. So you have to have an agreement with each of those, it maybe for this region, about 9 of them, right? So imagine a small Harlem-based company having to do 50-page agreements, taking 3 to 6 months with 9 to 10 different entities, right? Mm-hmm. And Medicaid itself, pardon me. And then if you have a class of 20 people, you're paid by who shows up. So, if 5 of them are represented with 5 different companies, now you're going to submit each month to each of these companies. How practical does that sound?
Sounds very cumbersome.
For crumbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because only if you're doing major business And so what happens, it's not practical. It's not practical. Medicare, and I came across two articles, one from 2018, 2021. This is an important conversation right here, because this is how Medicare federal has $2 billion set aside for the National Diabetes Prevention Program. They made it so hard for people to get paid, even the bigger companies. And the bigger companies wouldn't get involved in New York State Medicaid too, for the similar reasons. It's fairly new here. February 2020 it started. That was during the pandemic. So, they're still trying to get it together. But I had the privilege of meeting with the top brass of Medicaid, New York State. Can you do a fee for service? What does that mean? That means that plan can get paid directly from Medicaid, no matter who the person is signed to. The person could be signed to any of the 18. The relationship would be directly with Medicaid. Doesn't that make sense?
Yes, that it does.
And the reason it's important, because the best results from this program have come from the community-based organizations and the churches working directly with the community versus the hospitals and different people who operate in the sphere as well. So, but back to Medicare. So Medicare, the CDC were losing providers. And I was one of them to say, you know what, I think I'm going to have to put this on pause, because I'm a small entity. I can't work for free ongoing, right?
No, you can't.
So, and I had two articles, one from 2018, where people were saying they're not paying the providers. They're making it so hard for people, they just had this seriously cumbersome payment schedule. So I went to the CDC and I said, well, we don't deal with reimbursements. And I sent the woman, I said, you need to see these articles. One was from 2018. This is from 2021, July. Nothing has changed, right? No one's going to do your program if they can't get reimbursed. Mm-hmm. So when I sent her the article, she's like, I'm going to meet with my team about this. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I'm sure there's pressure coming from other places. They totally revamped it, made it so much more generous, because it was also so little money for the time that this program takes. It's time consuming if you care. And most people who do this care enough to spend more time than the money allows. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's almost like people bank on that. But anyway, so Medicare, I have to give them credit, have revamped, and they have, why have $2 billion set aside? 100 million of only, that you've used. The rest of it's just sitting there. And of course, at some point, somebody's going to say, hey, this money's here. These people don't want help. Let's put it somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. Not that people don't want help. They don't even know about DPP most of the time. And there's not enough people doing it. So that's DPP. What I'm doing, and this actually came from, I was talking to a union rep. He is a chief of staff of a division. And he says, and I was talking to them for a long time about doing DPP. These particular people, I was told their monthly, employee magazine or whatever comes out every month. It looks like an obituary. That was the term used.
Wow.
Yeah, these people are dying young. They get to retire at 55. A lot of them are not making it. The nature of what they do, they're not using the bathroom. They're on buses for hours. A lot going on that just the nature of their business goes against their health. It does not link for a healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So then he says, can you ask her if we can do a health challenge? And I'm like, yeah. So a health challenge is more general than we're doing a diabetes prevention. Because yes, there are a lot of people with diabetes problems, but as you alluded to earlier, there are people with other issues, right? High blood pressure, somebody might be overweight and want to lose weight, but they're not diabetic, right? So there's other things that, people want to work on. And a health challenge is broader. We can have more people participate than diabetes prevention class. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on going into the new year. And I will be focused on, appealing to individuals, but I'm going to be appealing to employers to do health challenges for their employees.
Now, is this where, when you do these health challenges, is this where you use the New Start protocol?
I'll tell you the important parts that are missing. Like when you talk about, the cookie cutter, the people who have done well, even with DPP, it's everything that they added to DPP. DPP is just kind of like modules. It's very dry. It's like having a cake. And if you don't put frosting on it and add some stuff to it, it's just, kind of a bland cake. Mm-hmm. So what I found important that people need, because we all know certain things, right? We need accountability and support. That's one of the things that DPP gave people, and particularly I started a couple of classes and then the pandemic hit. And I don't know if I have Melissa on here. I don't know if she'd want to chime in and kind of give a perspective if she'd like to. Melissa, let me know. But having the group, particularly with, COVID hitting, we were meeting in person, one of the groups, and then we ended up online. But it was like a lifeline that was needed at that time, and so that helped a lot. But it's a couple of people had accountability partners, right? And then we had the group accountability. And then we had the tools. We had the online tracking capability, which I have now. I am using Beachbody. Are you familiar with Beachbody?
I've heard of the Beachbody.
Okay, so totally group tested workouts. The wonderful thing about the Beachbody platform for me is that I could be dealing with people of a variety of fitness levels. So I don't have to, and as a fitness trainer, I could build a program, but it's not practical to do it for a whole group of people, right? Individual programs. So with this, I can do an assessment with you and say, all right, Cedric, based on what your goals are and what you're telling me you feel your current fitness level is from 1 to 10, I think it would be great if you started with maybe 21-day fix. That's a lower impact, blah, blah, blah. Let's see how that goes. Or you like dance, or your wife loves dancing. Okay, we have, Shanti has this wonderful dance workout. I've done it. I love it. And, so there's mixed martial arts, there's stretching, there's yoga, there's bar, Pilates. There's a variety of programs. And so you can never get bored. We have live classes as well. Wow. We have new Peloton style classes. I have a mixed bike right here. I'm a spinner. I went to my first spin class in 2000, loved it. So when I saw that come up, I'm like, I'm ordering me a bike. And so I can get out of my bed, go straight onto a bike and ride with the former Peloton darling who's now with us, Jennifer Jacobs. But anyway, so there's accountability in that. And there's we have an app that people get daily accountability and support, like-minded people who are on their own fitness journeys, and people are, it's just like the AA formula, you know what I mean? We come together, and it's the power of the group that helps you, because we've all tried this stuff on our own. And sometimes we've had success, and sometimes that success has been short-lived. So.
Wow.
And anyone can try what I'm doing for 14. It's a 14-day free trial. You can come in and check things out, join us in the group, and see if you want to continue with us. It's only in the most basic way, $99 for the year. You get the support for a whole year and access to all of those programs, accountability and support.
You're right about that. One of the biggest, enigmas is how at the start of the year, millions of people, usually adults, make these New Year's resolutions. And, when you follow up with March and April and May, a lot of us have given up on those New Year's resolutions. I think there's a spike in gym memberships at the start of the year, at the beginning of the year, with everyone just making the resolutions. But then a couple months later, those same memberships have dropped, or maybe they just stopped going. They've allowed life and the circumstances of life to really just choke the seed of progress that they had determined themselves to make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're not trained to take care of ourselves. Work is important. And the scary part about that, I'm sure you know that there is a term in Japan for death by overwork. That culture is it's such an ingrained part that people die. They actually have a term in Japanese that means death by overwork.
I believe it's karoshi. I hope I'm saying it right.
I knew you would come with it. We make a good team. So,
agreed.
And so here we have that as well. We don't have a term for it. Maybe we call it stress. I don't know. But a lot of people die of heart attacks, right? I think sometimes we think stuff is important enough to, work for 2 or 3 jobs, right? Our priorities aren't straight. That's really the bottom line. Our priorities are not in order, because the reality of it is, if our priorities were in order, we would treat the one body we have, right? You can get a car. You may have had 5 cars in your lifetime, maybe more. You might be able to get some new knees, right? You might be able to get some new hips, right? I have a cornea transplant, so I have a cornea in my right eye.
Wow.
It's never the way it was before I started having keratoconus, right? But the point is that we get one body. One.
That's true.
You wouldn't think so, the way we treat it, right?
No.
So there's a thing going around Facebook, people who are saying, why are y'all asking so many questions about what's in the vaccine? And I'm not trying to go down this road, but I do have to say this particular. And they say, you don't ask about this and you don't ask about that. Have you seen that? The cut and paste?
I've seen that excuse where, just trust the science.
Yeah, you don't ask
question,
about what's in your McDonald's. You should. And guess what? So I wrote to one, I said, you know what? This is about the 4th time I've seen this. I got to respond. And I said, there are people, this is something else that we teach in DPP, teach people to read labels.
Yes.
Right? Not so much for content as, calories and fat grams and all of that.
And sugar.
But even the commercial they have, the little kids trying to read the ice cream, what was in the ice cream. Remember that commercial? And then Breyers or whoever it was, it's milk, it's this, it's that, right? Something that they could pronounce, because they couldn't pronounce all of the chemicals in the other brand. You remember that commercial?
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. So, but it baffles my mind that someone would brag about the fact that, and they really don't understand, there are people who read and there are people who research. When they go to the doctors, they know more about their condition and potential treatment than the doctor, right? So but that shows you where we are as a society, where people would, put this out like, you don't care about what's in. And I feel them on that, because when I talk about Shakeology and how wonderful this nutrient dense thing is, all of a sudden people who don't ask these questions about anything else, all of a sudden they have all these questions, about adaptogens and y'all not getting this stuff. And you're asking me 101 questions about a nutrient dense superfood where you're not asking these questions about the processed food that you're eating.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel that from that perspective myself. But yeah, I said, listen, there are people who do this. They do read and they do mind what they put in their bodies, and they're a lot healthier than most of us. So.
Well, like anything, I believe that if you get a new cell phone, you spend about $1,000 on the new Apple cell phone. You take great care of it. You get a nice new case for it. You're careful not to drop it in water or just not leave it exposed to the elements. We take such good care of our tools and our phones, things that we could readily replace. But when it comes to our bodies, it becomes a different thing. And though there are factors at play, such as food deserts and everything, and I'd like to get your take on this. I think that there is a general lack of knowledge. I think the knowledge is out there, but the acquisition of said knowledge as far as what goes in our bodies is missing. And I think we're starting to see more people interested in terms of what they're eating, because I think we're now realizing that we've been sold a bill of goods, that this idea that I can simply take a pill and that'll solve my problems. People are starting to see that, well, maybe that's not the end all be all, because you're seeing more and more people who are working with, for example, the likes of you, who are sharing their testimonies of how they lost weight, of how they were able to get off their medications, how they were able to reverse disease. And they're going on various platforms, including this one, and they're sharing their story. And, they generally have a central or a common theme, and that is a lifestyle change as well as a dietary change, right? It's about stepping away from maybe the culture in which they find themselves in, those food cultures, and changing certain parameters in their lifestyle. And then the results come. So it's no longer a matter of someone simply saying that, well, I have good genes, or they're lucky, maybe they have God's favor. No, I mean, they've simply made changes where it matters. And the results came as they would come for most of us.
Okay, so I'm going to break down a couple of things. Black women, 4 out of 5 of us is overweight. 4 out of 5, right?
Wow.
We're dying from heart disease, number one thing that kills us, right? I think that's a combination of diet and probably stress. I used to train an attorney, well-accomplished attorney, and her husband, private schools, Ivy League, all of that. And it was the husband and I were talking during one of our sessions about how the pressure of the corporate life and all of that, a lot of accomplished Black people die early. That blew my mind, right? Couple of reasons why Black women don't want to exercise. I used to wear perm. I understand this one. I don't want to mess up my hair.
Whoa.
Okay. That's not the number one, right? And I have a young lady who's a coach on my team, and she has been researching, like in a high-powered way, researching. And she did a study and she sent me the study. The number one reason is, I don't want to lose my voluptuousness, okay? My sex appeal.
The curves.
Okay. There you go. And I've had people come in, Hispanic, Black, white, I just want to get rid of this, pointing to the stomach, right? And this, right? Saggy triceps or whatever. Those are the priorities. And, I'm carrying some extra weight right now. My neighbor just now, I'm like, I got to lose some weight. He's like, girl, please. Right. It reminds me of when I went to, even with the A1Cs, 7, 8, we're in a neighborhood where people have 13, 14. Eric Adams, our incoming mayor, when he was rushed to the emergency room, had an A1C of 17.
Wow.
Okay. He was going blind, neuropathy, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
He reversed it. Whole food, plant-based diet and exercise. And baby, they are not ready for some of the changes this man's about to make in New York City.
Oh boy.
They are
Sound
not
like
ready.
you have inside knowledge.
I do.
Okay.
Right.
We'll talk
One
afterwards.
of which is, no, we can talk now. Doctors are going to take nutrition courses in our city.
Wow.
Because they
Wow.
don't get enough of that in med school.
No, they
right?
don't. No, they don't.
And if that is the number one reason, that's key. Lifestyle, nutrition. Someone was quoting Lancet. 70% of deaths were diet related across the board, cancer, all of it.
Mhm.
That's deep. Why are we not focused on lifestyle?
Well, and to that point, according to data, they recommend no less than 25 hours of nutrition education across the 4-year medical school curriculum. So
How much
doctors
are they getting?
well, they receive. I'm looking at various research here. Some are saying that throughout the 4-year course of medical school, on average, students receive 23.9 contact hours of nutrition instructions. I mean, 24 to 25 hours in 4 years. That's not a lot. It's not a whole lot. It's certainly not enough to make a dent in, the therapeutic approach.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I've heard it's a couple of classes. I don't know if that equates to 24 hours, but whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be enough. And another thing that they need to, the person who talks to you initially, like I had the privilege of having a relationship with one of the long-term community-based clinics out here, and they were sending people. And, you would think, oh, great, warm lead, no problem, right?
Mhm.
Yet not more problems than I thought. But what happens is that person, that interview, that assessment, you have to see if people are ready. There's a young lady who works for the YMCA. She was doing DPP for quite some time. If you were not ready, you were not getting into her class because it's performance-based, right? You have to give results, or you can't be a DPP provider.
Mhm.
So she was very cautious of who she let in to her class. So if you answered questions, she said on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm ready right now, blah, blah, blah. If you were, I have a class coming up or work and blah, blah, blah. She said, okay, call me when you're ready.
Mm.
Okay. So food desert. Okay. I think we have too many excuses given for us. I really, too many excuses.
Please
Too many
elaborate.
excuses. I mean, in a lot of areas, too many excuses. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the only group of people who have been oppressed. Right? When I see people who come to this country who look like me, they may be a little darker in hue, but they're coming from places where they don't have the opportunities that we have here. They have a hunger, right?
Mm-hmm.
They take advantage, full advantage of things that many of us take for granted. I had a young South African, Black South African young lady say to me, "You guys can go to school for free and you don't go."
Yeah.
I went to school, but it sent a chill through my body when she said, I mean, she said it with this fervor that I can't even emulate. But she's like, "Are you crazy?"
That's right. Most of the world has to pay for everything. Elementary, middle, college.
So, there are people who pick up bottles here, they don't have that option where they come from to take a bottle and get a nickel. And I see couple of women, they are approaching this like a business. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Up early, 5 a.m. I used to see them when I was on my way to Equinox, right? Food desert. If I can find designer clothes, right? There's no designer. Well, there is now. I can't say that. Victoria's Secret is up here on Huntington Street now. But people go down to Madison Avenue. People go to New Jersey to buy cars. People go where they need to go to get the things that they like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? And people go to City Island to eat seafood, right? People go to Chinatown to get whatever. And there's no food desert here now, I can tell you that. We are going through the process of gentrification, and there are people, the little deli that may have only sold spice ham and some other stuff, they sell a lot more stuff right now. So the options are varied. We have Whole Foods here. We have farmers markets coming here. And, if you have EBT, quote unquote food stamps, the electronic version of, you can even get a discount on vegetables and produce, right?
Wow.
Hallam Hospital has a food market. 116th Street. We don't have the taste for these things. We have to retrain our taste buds to enjoy the things that are excellent for our bodies and shake the things that aren't. It's not an easy process.
Right.
And it definitely isn't if you're not interested and you laugh about it and you think it's funny, right? Because a lot of people don't take this stuff seriously.
Until it's too late.
Some people know, even when it's too late, because guess what? You're hooked. It is not normal for people to think about your cat, think about your dog, right? If your cat goes near something that, is hot, they recoil. It is not normal behavior for a being. I'm not even going to say a person, to keep doing something, right? To keep eating something. I just lost my foot. And the doctor says, "Miss Kenon, you've got to stop eating the sweets. You got to stop eating the fried foods, whatever." And I keep doing it because I'm hooked. Sugar is addictive more so than cocaine and heroin.
Yes, it is.
Right? And there's a lot of, and remember MSG? Give me the full mono what? I know you know. MSG.
MSG. It's certainly not Madison Square Garden. It's monosodium glutamate.
In the Chinese food, everyone it has MSG in it, blah, blah, blah. MSG is still in everything.
It's a flavor
they just use the full name and it's different, versions of it. But these foods, these additives are for preserving and all of that, but there's an addictive quality to them, right? McDonald's, I was reading and it blew my mind when they talked about how they have a certain oil or whatever on the French fries that when you put it in your mouth, it starts to melt. So that's a trigger they create that you want to repeat. The way all the McDonald's look and everything they say. I mean, everyone is trying to get us to do and act a certain way and to eat a certain way. And they are spending millions of dollars for that. And they have neuroscientists on their teams who know how we're wired, right? But meanwhile, we're just kind of walking into every trap that's set for us.
True.
And it's not until we understand, it's a sad thing. Some people, my mom, she has lung cancer. She smoked 65 years.
Wow.
60, but she's 79. When everyone else stopped, she continued to smoke. And as soon as the doctor told her, Miss Kenon, you can stop smoking at least, while we do the treatment, she's going through radiation. It'll help enhance the treatment if you stop smoking just for that time. She said, okay. And I rolled my eyes like, yeah, right. She stopped. My mother hasn't had another cigarette. That blew my mind because people have lung cancer and they keep smoking. That was divine intervention as far as I'm concerned, right? The same divine intervention that freed me. We haven't gone through New Start. I don't know if we're supposed to be on here but one thing that I can tell you. Let's
address that next.
When I say divine intervention, I'm not joking. This is a spirit that goes on that, it is not normal for people to walk down roads where there's just death, sickness, and so forth, right? I think in some cases, people don't know because they don't tell you that type 2 diabetes is preventable and reversible. So I've seen my grandmother, my Uncle Charlie, my Aunt Isabel. I think it's just doom, right? So they'll, people say, oh, change this, change that. But they don't really say, if you change what you're eating, you don't have to go down this road that your people went down. As Dr. Sharon Robles so wonderfully put it, she says, heredity can load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Well said.
I thought that was so well said. And so we have to take responsibility. We have to be accountable to ourselves. I had a doctor give me a medicine after I had I nearly died from an asthma attack to October 7, 2011.
Wow.
And I'm taking this thing. And when I went back from my, checkup, I said, I stopped taking that. He said, why? I said, it made me feel like I was dying. I could not put it any other way. I felt like I was dying when I took this medicine. I'm sitting in the living room with my mom. I see an advertisement for this medicine. You know what it says?
What's that?
Could be fatal to asthmatics. It should have never been prescribed to me. I said, I feel like I'm dying when I take that.
Wow.
Because I was. Okay.
It helps to be your own self-care advocate.
If you feel like you're dying with a med that a doctor gives you, you don't need permission to stop taking it, people. Stop taking it. It might save your life.
Very well said. Now, having said that, I want to talk a little bit about the New Start. I want to talk about the steps of this protocol and, how those steps together can culminate in someone transforming their lives and their health for the better.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly say health and wellness can include physical, mental, a lot of that's needed right now, emotional, relational, financial, all of that's wellness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, new start, we're just going to take nutrition. We've talked a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, fitness trainers. I started taking sports nutrition because when people come to you, most of them want to lose weight. Most of the transformations, even if they wanted to gain muscle mass, deals with nutrition. And quite often it is eating a certain way that they may not be eating at that time, right? People want to eat clean, more vegetables and fruit than flesh. Some of us don't eat flesh. Be very careful if you're vegetarian or vegan that you don't have a super high carb diet. Very careful of that. Be very careful of the vegan meat, right?
Beyond
It's
meats and
processed as the rest of the crap.
the Beyond Meats and things like
Yeah,
that.
there's a variety of them. Just like anything else, you turn it around. I used to get these vegan balls from the dollar store, and it had celery, carrots, sea salt, blah, blah, blah. There was no craziness in it. That's rare. But the main ones that are sold, a lot of Seventh-day Adventists who tend to be, vegetarians and being a lot are suffering from the same illnesses because there is a dependence on these meats, which are supposed to kind of be, some people say, transition into veganism for those who still need the texture and all of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's recipes where you can make your own patties and all of that with beans and sprouts or whatever, soy. So avoid a bunch of vegan meats. Understand that a lot of the food is processed foods are designed to keep you coming back.
And marketed as such. And the marketing plays a role in that too.
It's designed. That's the point I'm making. It's designed. It's part of all of it goes together, right? To make you customers for life. Even if it's stuff that doesn't benefit you, it benefits the pockets of those who own these companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. If they did, soda would have a warning label because there's no nutritional value in it. Pure sugar.
That's right.
Nutrition, exercise. Exercise, we tend to focus a lot on cardio, and there are other areas of exercise. I'll tell a quick story. My mom has a friend. I just spoke to her. She's older, my mom's age, and she lost a bunch of weight. The doctor's happy, but now she's like this. And she told me, I have atrophy all in my back. And so it is so important that we do some weight-bearing exercises, even if it's our own body weight. It's good for our bones, which also atrophy from disuse, right? You got to move. Walking is one of the best exercises, but I even found myself having upper body weakness from not, picking up weights and all the things my body's used to doing. What I did 10 years ago, 10 months ago, even 10 days ago means nothing, right? You have to keep doing things for yourself. What I ate 10 days ago doesn't matter. It's what I'm eating today.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have to develop new habits, yeah. And there's I'm going to be I look forward to coming back to speak to you because what I know is a problem for us is the ability to make lifestyle changes.
Yes.
That is not just on us. We have additives that are being put in the food. You understand what I'm saying? We have a lot against us in this process, including our own natural biology, which helps us function. Because if I thought all the 10,000, 40,000 thoughts that I had in a day, I'd be crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we have habits and groves in our brain and recall and all of that. And habits are hard to change. In fact, there's a whole thing called habit loops, and the marketers use these strategies. So I want to start using the strategies to help get people out of the quicksand versus the way they're using it to get people in the quicksand,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can use the same strategy to pull people out. It's very specific. When you hear the term tiny habits, that's part of it. That's built into that DPP system.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when people know, like they'll be doing these strategies and people don't know. I think when we tell people, you're being manipulated, right? You're being made to do things. This is not conspiracy. I'll show you the books that people read to learn how to do this, to get you to act the way they want you to act.
Sure.
Now, we're trying to get you to do something different. We're going to use this habit loop with the cue and the trigger and the reward, because that's what it boils down to. Tony Dungy was a winning coach with this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
His book will show you how to do this with a team. Habit loops.
All set.
Yeah. So exercise, get beyond just cardio. Walking's fantastic. Do some weight-bearing exercises. It's great for your muscle retention. No, you will not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you will be functioning. I have my mom, I take care of her. I might have to lift her up one day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be in shape for that.
That's
Makes
right.
sense? Next is water. We're dehydrated. I mean, that's just a fact of the matter. Water is wonderful for our bodies. I feel sorry for the people who say, I don't like water, because, our bodies need water. So whatever your weight is, half of that in ounces is pretty much what you should be drinking in terms of water.
Mm-hmm.
You can change your health just by developing a habit of drinking water, right? And particularly in lieu of, if you drink juices like orange juice, and all of that, that you're not, squeezing it yourself and all. Put some lime, lemon, whatever, and cucumber some people use to develop a water habit. It's also good. Water can be used in a lot of other ways that are medicinal outside of your body. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
equipped to go into all of the details of that, but water is used for a lot of other protocols outside of your body. Exercise, water, sunshine, or in my case, vitamin D. Our bodies need vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency, again, people tell you, oh, you're vitamin D deficient. What they don't tell you is what that means. And I've never asked. I said, okay, not good. Your body needs every nutrient that it's supposed to have. It shouldn't have low iron. It shouldn't have low B12, whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
It needs these things. So if you're deficient, take it seriously, because it's serious. And low vitamin D, I heard someone in one of these type of forums say, it opens you up to cancer. I said, what? It opens me? Oh, no. And now we've discovered that a lot of the people who developed the worst outcomes of COVID were vitamin D deficient people.
Yes. One article, one study said that 80% of those hospitalized in the ICU for COVID-19 or vitamin D deficient.
There you go.
Yes.
So if you have that diagnosis, please take what the doctor tells you to take on that note and get out there. I walk around Central Park pretty much every day, and I get the sunshine naturally as well. Temperance moderation.
That's a big one.
A lot of people, yeah, it's a big one. It's a loaded one for sure. I think moderation and people telling you, you can have a little of that. That's a trap, people. There's some foods, your kryptonite might not be mine. But if you've struggled with weight and all of that, decade after decade after decade, you have to look at eliminating something from your diet that might be it might be a bagel that's keeping you from getting where you need to be, right? I don't believe that we all can do all foods in moderation. I don't believe it, because we wouldn't look like we look right now if we could. That's a farce to me. But people tell you that because food is such a comfort for us, that the thought of like losing a best friend that many of us have had since we were young, right? My best friend, that's my go-to, Haagen-Dazs. I can't imagine my life without it. I'm serious. Food is serious for us, right? It's not even the number one thing we need. We need air, number one, water, number two. Food is at the bottom, but in terms of the way we act, their bellies were their gods.
That's right.
That's in the Bible. So anyway, I believe that you have to be honest with yourself, do as an assessment, and say, what has been holding me back? How come that 10 pounds I needed to lose has turned to 20 when I was 30 and 40? Now it's 50. Now I need to lose 75 pounds. How did I get here? Do an assessment, right? And don't give up on yourself. Don't give in to, well, this is just the way it is, because you'll pay the price of that, and we all want a quality of life that's worth living, right? Air, fresh air, get out, take that mask off. I promise you, out in the park, you're not going to get COVID.
Some people wear it in the car.
You're not, it's not going to happen. It would have happened to me already if it were, out in the fresh air. Just don't have people up in your face, right? Because this new one is supposedly, really kind of contagious, but fresh, get some air in those lungs. Get out there, cold, get some air in your lungs, right? Fresh air. And, we have someone smoking downstairs. I'm about to get air purifiers. There are plants that help purify the air. Look that up. If you love plants, there's some plants that are good for you to have when it comes to the air in your place. Keep your windows, even in the wintertime, cracked a little so you always have fresh air circulating. That has actually saved some people's lives with carbon monoxide issues. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I agree with certainly the role of nutrition, starting there. For me, I like that you mentioned water. It's something that, like you said, we're dehydrated because you can go all day, and if you just observe some people and you see them for the entire day, many of us hardly drink any water. We'll drink sodas, we'll drink juices, we'll drink everything and anything, but we won't touch this stuff. And so, unbeknownst to us, the dehydration accumulates over time and will actually cause some of these issues that we're dealing with. And so, one thing that I would add is the impact and the role of cleansing, sort of taking stock of the toxic load that we're constantly adding into our system. You put deodorant on, You spray all these cologne and perfume, some of the lotions and some of the things that we put on our skin, our hair, all of those things get absorbed by our skin and ultimately into our system. And, as we're taking stock of our health and our bodies, we have to keep in mind all the chemicals that we are exposing ourselves to, never mind the things that we have to breathe in, especially if you live in a very highly polluted area. But just bringing it back down to your own personal home, a lot of the toxins that we're breathing in and things we're putting on our skin, these things accumulate in our bodies. And so I think, taking or placing an emphasis on cleansing the system, it could be as simple as making sure you go and have a bowel movement every day, to eliminate some of the toxic load in our system. So that's one thing that I would add to that.
Well, right now, in fact, someone was just sending me a text because I'm going to be doing a presentation, and I hope she's not calling me to say, "Can you start tomorrow?" Because I'm not ready. There's someone supposed to be doing tomorrow, but it's going into prayer and fasting. We have a 3-day prayer and fasting period coming up, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. January, my church is having a 10-day, and you hear a bunch of churches do this, Daniel fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're having a Daniel fast. Wonderful. What I'm going to suggest to people when they do the Daniel fast, number one, make it about food. Because a lot of times now, because of the gluttonous, we're eating far more than we need. We're eating a bunch of stuff that we don't need. And there's really a food addiction, a compulsivity that people don't even recognize, which makes it very hard for you to get the benefit. There's tremendous benefit to fasting. I'm talking spiritually now. Biblical fasting is, fasting, abstaining from food for spiritual purposes. There's tremendous stories of how people overcame. The Jewish people were saved, the whole nation, when Esther did a 3-day dry fast. All throughout the Bible, there are stories of fasting. One day, Jesus fasted 40 days, leading into his ministry.
That's right.
And the spirit was just without measure. There is power in fasting. And I think this whole food thing has a lot to do with preventing people from tapping into power sources like fasting. If you notice, every religion fasts.
Every religion.
Because there's power in prayer with fasting. But if I can't stop eating for 24 hours, I can't fast.
That's right. And your body will be fine if you fast for, several days. You'll be fine.
Yes, your body, yeah. But if I don't believe that, now I know that because I've gone 20 days without food.
Wow.
But if I told you the challenge I've had doing a long fast, the last long fast I did, and it came up in my Facebook feed, and I went, I was on a cleanse before I went to Hawaii. I'm like, why was I on a cleanse? You're going to Hawaii. 18 days came up, and I went, whoa, I was just doing that in 2010, right? But that's 2010,
Mm-hmm.
And it's been far more challenging because now I'm not just doing it for a cleanse, I'm doing it from the spiritual realm. And I'll tell you, my flesh has warred with me. And I'm not a person who believes I'm going to die because I know I've done it before, right? But it's interesting that once it became spiritual, the battle is on, right?
Yeah.
because some sides of you don't want to die, really.
Yeah.
So lastly, so yeah, there's power. I mean, everyone knows from the beginning, doctors have used, Fung is using intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting, that's
long
right.
periods of where you're not fasting, and the benefits are tremendous to your body. Tremendous.
Your blood sugar. Right. I mean, just
everything.
yeah, just
Everything
skipping
changed.
breakfast. Just skipping breakfast. One of the things I watched one interview with him, and he stated just skipping breakfast, the benefits it has to your blood sugar and your insulin is phenomenal.
Exactly. So air, fresh air, rest, and sleep. Again, poor sleep disproportionately undermines the health of communities of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the latest. Lack of sleep is now killing us. We're not sleeping as long as sleep is a privilege. If we can target sleep, we might be able to reduce the burden of all types of disease among racial minorities. Okay, so our minds are cluttered, because that's usually when you can't sleep, you have stuff on your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
In some cases. But people aren't sleeping. Black folks are not sleeping. Brown people are not sleeping. And we're paying the price of that. There's always a price for these things, right? So time with God is the last one. Prayer, meditation, fasting, studying of scripture and other spiritual books. I get up at 4 a.m. and I start a meditation, 10 minutes. I've been practicing this for about 6 weeks and I'm loving it. And then I read the Bible, I read my devotionals, and I do that for about an hour and a half. And then I get ready to go to the park where I walk for 2 hours, almost 7 miles. And I listen to personal development books like Jack Canfield's Success Principles. I listen to The Power of Habits. I listen to Humility, classic book, religious book. I listen to Miles Monroe. I listen to who talks about the power of fasting. Yeah. He started fasting at 16 for 28 days, a phenomenal man. He and his wife died in a plane crash, but he is still teaching us.
I follow his work.
Derek Prince. Yeah. So, I try to prepare myself between 4 and 10 a.m. Self-care. That's a 25% of my day is self-care. And I get up very early and I guard that time. Right. So, and it's helping me tremendously on this journey.
Amen.
Yes.
Well, Coach Kenon, I want to thank you for, joining us this evening, and sharing a lot of these nuggets, pearls of wisdom that you've shared with us. Certainly would love to have you back. Because I want us to dig a little deeper into, the role of lifestyle and its impact on lifestyle diseases. Now, this is the part of the podcast where we sort of open it up to the public. And I see that we have some questions in the chat, but if you would stick around with us for a few more minutes, we're going to open up the audience to open questions from the audience. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
All right. So let's start with Melissa. Melissa, do you mind asking some of the questions that you had?
Yes. With water, I drink a lot of carbonated water. I wanted to know what was your take on the 0 calorie for water that's carbonated.
What else does it have in it?
Nothing else. It just has some flavor of fruit like kiwi, strawberry, or black cherry. It's 0 calories.
And it's flavored.
Natural flavoring.
Well, do you know what natural flavor? Because that's another loaded phrase, right?
Let me get a bottle. let me get a bottle, and I'll.
No, that's another. Natural flavoring.
Well, because water is just H2O. I mean, if you add anything else in it, then it's water plus.
anymore. And
Right, right.
if you add your own lemon, then you put lemon in it. You got it from hopefully a fruit, a piece of fruit, not like the bottled, lime and all of that, right?
Hmm.
Here it is, natural flavor. This is ingredients: carbonated water, natural flavor.
But what is
So,
natural flavors?
Melissa, the best water is going to be water that is just water. And if you want to add some kiwi, add it yourself. Then you know that it's kiwi, right? That you added it. Add a cucumber yourself. They even have some of these machines that carbonate. What's the deal with carbonation? You know anything other than it can make you belch? I mean, I don't, what are some of the issues with carbonation? I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
Well, it's
All
just
right.
the
Thank you
addition
so
of
much.
carbon dioxide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I
So
was
that shouldn't
saying
be much of
it's
a
the
problem.
addition of carbon dioxide. I mean, it's there have been rumors that it may have an impact in your with your bone health, but nothing, to
Oh,
my knowledge, has been conclusive. I think the bigger threat is just some of the added flavoring
natural.
agents in these things. But of course, I mean,
So
nothing
those are,
beats plain water.
Mhm.
yeah, flavoring agents. So, that's what the deal is on that. But again, it's better than not drinking any water, I would say. What's the problem with you just drinking regular water? If there is.
Because I didn't want to drink the sodas anymore, but what I liked about the sodas was that belch. And so I eliminated the colas and all of that corn sweetener, and with some of the citrus sodas, they have the brominated vegetable oil, which shuts down your thyroid. So I cut all of the sodas out, but I just use the carbonated, and I do add lemon to it, and I add other things to it, but it's already flavored. So like you said, stay away from the flavor, because what is that?
Well,
What is
let's look
that?
at it in this particular case, Melissa, again, this is a journey. And so if you're going from sodas to this carbonated flavored water, then that's just the next step. And then you can just continue your journey. You know what I mean? It's a
Right.
better step, in my humble opinion, than drinking Coca-Cola, right? But you
Right.
don't want to live there, just like the people who get to the vegan meat and then they kind of stay there.
Right.
You want to move on to where you can enjoy, water
Okay. I
with
think
lime and different things, and I don't know why you need to belch. We got to find out what that's about. you know,
Good
Oh
question.
my
Good
you need,
goodness.
question.
yeah,
Good
that's
question, Melissa.
that in itself is another, so someone is asking, thank you, Melissa. Melissa loves certain foods, and what she diligently did, she was in my class, is that she found out ways to make her favorite foods in healthy versions. There you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was impressive. Thank you for teaching us. God bless you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and a blessing for sure. Is it okay to fast while on meds? I think you need to approach your doctor about that, particularly. So this is what you can do. Do a partial fast. All fasts are not just water fasts. There are a variety of fasts that you can do. One of which, fasting can be having one meal, or eliminating certain foods from your meals. Those are different ways that you can fast. All fasts are not juice fast or water only fast or dry fast. So if you need to take meds, I would look at the foods that I eat and decide, what foods do I want to put on the altar during this fast? And then, Make sure that you do some spiritual stuff during the course of your fast.
Mm.
Does that answer your question, Les? So you can do a partial fast that does not take out all of the food, but fast from certain foods that may not be beneficial to you that you're eating. Is that cool with you, Dr. Cedric?
I agree.
Yes.
And no one really knows unless you're speaking with your doctor, because they know what you're going through. And so I think what works for someone who is, let's say, non-diabetic may not necessarily be the same for someone who is diabetic. And so it's not always a one size fits all. You may have to modify or tweak your approach. Does that answer your question, Leslie?
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you for asking. We want to open it up to everybody else. Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask Coach Kenon?
Yes. Hi, this is Amy. I wrote in the chat, is there a difference between purified and spring water?
Yeah. I think purified goes through a process. It may be just tap water that they put through a purification process. And then spring waters are supposed to come from springs. Am I correct on that?
That's right. That's right. So purified water it's as you said, it's gone through the process of purification. So it may have been stripped of, some of its mineral content. Spring water is filtered underground. So it tends to have, it tends to have all the essential minerals that are in it. So one is stripped of minerals, and the other one, which is spring water, tends to have its own minerals.
Thank you for that.
Good question, Amy. Good question.
Great.
Does anyone else have another question for Coach Kenon?
What about the water with pH added for flavor? What's your take on that? Like the smart water? Electrolytes added for flavor. Sorry,
Yeah, I know
added.
there are different ways that you can eat to change the acidity and, the pH level in your body. And I know people who have these diffusion, I don't know what you call them, these machines that, alkaline machines and alkaline water. I personally don't know if these are just marketing gimmicks, but I know that you can eat in certain ways to make sure that your system has a balanced pH. Am I correct, Dr. Cedric?
That's right. You're absolutely correct. I mean, there are many ways in which you can make your body more alkaline. I think the goal is to get the body more alkaline.
Yes.
I think the idea is that disease tends to occur in a body that is slightly acidic. And so that's having a pH that's less than 7, right? Because the body, generally, the blood wants to be at a pH of about 7.3 or 7.4. And the higher up that number goes, the more alkaline it is. And generally, your body and your cells and your whole immune system tend to function better compared to when your pH is down, lower or less than 7. Your body or your blood tends to be more acidic. And so your cells don't work as well. Your metabolism doesn't work as well. Things just sort of, break down and aren't working like you'd want them to. And so I think it's just another way of saying that, hey, this is how you can increase your pH. But food is always the preferred, or change in diet, I should say, is always the preferred method to addressing any sort of pH imbalance in the body. The body will take care of the rest if you give it proper food and nutrition.
Excellent. Great question. Great answer.
That's right. Great question. All right. If there are no other questions, Coach Kenon, please tell us how we can get in touch with you, whether it's through your website or on social media.
You can email me at Coach Marci, Marci, NYC for New York City at gmail.com. You can feel free to text me at 917-499-8282. I do have a health challenge that's coming up. We're starting on January 10th. I'd love the opportunity to work with you, accountability, support. We have 2 nutrition programs. One focuses on portion control, the other on mindset, and a host of workouts that you can use, and a group of people, like-minded people who are striving daily to live better and healthier lives.
Thank you for that. And for those of you who may have joined us late, this video will be uploaded within the week on my YouTube channel. That's Dr. Cedric. Or visit me online at drced, that's drced.com, where you'll have access to all of my YouTube and social media platforms. So there you will find the full video and interview. And so on behalf of everybody in this chat, I want to thank you, Coach, for your time. I want to thank you for your wisdom. And we certainly look forward to having you join us again to continue this conversation, because I think it's something that needs to be had. So again, from everyone, from all of us to you, we want to thank you. God bless you. And, again, our many thanks and words of gratitude for you.
Thank you all for being here, and God bless you. Have a wonderful 2022.
Yes, let's start the new year right, guys. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight for this episode of the Self-Care Forum podcast. God bless you guys, and we'll see you next year. Okay? Listen to the audio version of the Self-Care Forum podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.